Hey folks, so we talked a little bit about questions in our last meeting, and so I want to make sure that I cover questions a little bit more thoroughly here. So this PowerPoint should be in D2L, and if I'll double check, but if it's not, I'll upload it for folks. So yeah, so deepening questions. So when you ask questions, make sure that you give time and space for the client to answer. Sorry, I'm trying to make the presentation work. So yeah, don't ask questions. Don't fire off rapidly. How was this? How was this for you? But what about this time? And also, how do you feel about this thing? Like, ask a question, wait. If you have another question, like a follow-up question or something like that, note it for yourself. But don't cut off. A client can only answer, any person can only answer one question at a time. So, um, pause for a moment, think about how you want to ask the question, ask it, and then wait. So um here's an example. Don't ask multiple questions, and we all do this all the time, but how have things been since you last came in? What's been going on? How's your relationship been with your mother? I think the real question is the how's your relationship been with your mother since the last time we talked? But and they may answer that, but they're not answering these other two. um so make sure that you stop after asking a question and let the client respond. Don't bombard and grill the client. That's just going to potentially put them on the defensive, make them uncomfortable. It reduces the safety in the session, and it doesn't get you what you need anyway. Avoid multiple questions, like we just talked about. Questions as statements. So, um, wouldn't it be better if you did this? Well, that's leading. So, like, wouldn't it be better if you didn't talk to your mother anymore? You know, that's not really a question. That's showing your bias. You believe that the client shouldn't talk to their mother anymore. So be careful. It's possible to ask a question in the form of a statement and to do it in a non-biased way. More often, though, that's more of a confrontation. So it's an opportunity to call someone out on something. So be careful if you're trying to get information or if you're trying to really actually explore what the client is thinking. Don't ask a question that that is directive in its nature. Um, and you don't want to have this turn into advice giving. That's what we want to avoid as counselors. Um, why questions? Sometimes folks don't know why they did a thing. Like there may have not been any thought to it. So instead of saying, why did you do that? Consider, let's explore your motivation some more. What were you feeling at that time? Like be more specific about it. Just why? Why did you do that? What that gets all the way back up to here bombarding, grilling, asking multiple questions. You're not actually accomplishing what you want to in those moments. So think about all of those things. There are some real strengths to questioning, though. And so we want to make sure that it's not the only thing you do, but it is a backbone to the work that you do. Uh, Asking closed-ended questions can just retrieve or clarify information. So a client tells you a whole bunch of things. If you need to just clarify something really quickly, a real quick closed-ended question suffices. Get your clarification and move on. Questions help us to get deeper. They help us to get what we're wondering out to the client, get the client to go deeper. So it helps the client to actually get some insight into their behaviors. Um, Prompt the client to assess or challenge some significant behavior. Like the lowest level of confrontation that you can have is with just asking a question. So if you do hear something that the client's doing that you think is problematic or you think is counter to the work that they're trying to accomplish, asking a question is a good way to confront, get them to try to explain it to you, and get them to acquire some of that insight that they need to move past this behavior. It also helps us to get to a deeper part of a client's story. A lot of times, clients are going to share with you surface level stuff. They're going to share about the behaviors, the symptoms that are going on at the surface. We need to get down into the feelings that are associated with those behaviors, and then even deeper into the meaning and value system and core belief systems that the client is experiencing. So, questions, well worded questions, help us get to that. things that matter, things that you can control, focus in the in between. Unconditional positive regard. Accept your client and their views without judgment. Ask a question, you get an answer back that you don't much care for, it doesn't matter. Unless it's, putting someone at risk for harm and not in a like an individual's value system, like my value system beliefs around harm, but an objective harm. Uh, it doesn't really matter what my client's information is. I don't have to like it. My clients deserve my care so long as they're not hurting someone else or themselves. It's important for us to be congruent, self-aware, authentic. You know, if the client if the client is perceiving that you care about them, they're going to feel more safe in answering you honestly. If they are picking up on some of your biases, that's going to create a lack of safety. And you can ask the best question in the world, and you're not going to get a legit answer back. One that means something. So do be cautious. Make sure that you are self-aware, authentic, and congruent. This is why supervision is so important. It's an opportunity to get your biases out, to become more aware of them so that we're not putting those on our client with what we're asking about or how we're asking it. Here's some specific examples of questions that you could ask. Scaling questions tend to be found in solution focused brief theoretical orientation. However, you can use them in any theoretical orientation that you're using. So, how ready, willing, and able are you to make changes on a scale? And you have to ask. So, on a scale from 1 to 10, or in this case, 0 to 10, I don't like putting zero. But on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to make this change in your life, where 1 means that you're not going to make much change and 10 means that you are absolutely ready, willing, and able to make change? Um, Give them the scale each time. But a scaling question is a great way to put a number to it. Follow-up questions are, so you're saying a 6. What would it take to get you to a 7 in this case? Like, what would that look like? Or how would we know that you slip back to a 5 or a 4 or whatever the case may be? Um, Great way to engage a client. Exception finding questions. So as it reads, yes, it's truly tough right now. I hate the dialogue in some of these things. Yes, it's really tough right now. Have there been times when you've coped a little better? How were you able to do that? The client saying, I can't cope with this. That should actually be up higher than there. But anyway, um, exception finding questions are when we ask a client around when the behavior or the symptom is not occurring. So that helps us to get a picture of if there are a lot of times someone may not know why a symptom is occurring, but they can tell you when it is and when it isn't happening. It can help to figure out what else is going on around when that symptom is occurring. Maybe they don't know the specific trigger that's causing them to feel anxious or causing their depression or whatever the case may be, but it can help us to figure out a little bit more about where this is coming from, but then also what we want to do to avoid it. If there's a particular person in their life that prevents this from occurring, well, maybe we need to figure out what that person represents to them and what they bring to the table. If it doesn't happen when they're at work or on vacation or whatever the case may be, why? And how can we then bring more of that into their life, whatever it is? The miracle question is a very specific question from solution focused brief orientation. But again, it's a very powerful question that can be used all over the place. Um, this is a more advanced skill exercise. It's basically asking the client to imagine what it would be like if they woke up in the morning tomorrow and all of their problems were gone. They wouldn't know it because they were asleep. What's the first thing that they would notice that was different? And clients will usually go for big stuff like, well, there'd be $1 million in my bank account, or my wife would love me more, or whatever the case may be. Okay, but you don't know that yet because you just woke up and the miracle happened overnight and you were asleep. Remember, that's what we were talking about. So it's the first thing that you would notice, not that everything was gone, but that something had changed, something was different. What's the first thing you would notice? Think about your senses when you wake up in the morning. um, it gets to very specific and very tangible things that maybe we can pull in and utilize in session. You can use brief miracle questions throughout the work that you're doing. If you really want to see the miracle question done well, Google Insoo Kim Berg and watch some YouTube videos of hers. She originated the miracle question. No one does it better. But also, do keep in mind that a miracle question is something that needs some time to set up and needs some time to work through. It's not something that you just fire off and expect it to be as miraculous as it really can be. So do take time to set up the miracle question. Get the client really thinking about what their problem is and what it would be like for it to be gone. Don't just ask, so you went to sleep tonight and you woke up the next morning and all your problems are gone. What did you notice? That's not helpful. That's not going to get them really thinking deep about what's going on. A lot more setup. Um, he overreacts to everything. Skip that. That would be if I was doing it live. We could do some Q&A. Think about questions to get someone deeper. Who is part of your current support system? What are some things you're really good at? Uh, this isn't always something that fits for folks, but if they do, is there a faith or religion that's important to you? You could really ask, like, what do you value about this situation, or what really speaks to you at kind of a subconscious level? Who do you know who handles this type of situation really well? Can you imagine what they would do? Um, More questions. Tell me about strengths, the positive things in your life. What caused you to come in today of all days? If a client comes in for a session with you or logs in to meet with you, that's change. Like, they could just as easily have stood you up, but they showed up. So, what led you to actually make this first step is actually like getting to that answer is actually a really profound answer. How have you been able to deal with this problem in the past, or how do you deal with it, when you are successful dealing with it? It's clear that you've been able to manage aspects of this throughout your life. What's working when it is working, and then your presence indicates a desire for something to change. So let's talk about that desire. How much do you desire this? What are you willing to put in to get out? um Questions help us to stay in the here and now. So you don't just have to look into the past or ask about what they'd want in the future. You can ask about, how do you feel today? You can ask about, um, you know, you can get the client to ground themselves by asking them to think about what it feels like to feel their feet on the floor, to smell a certain thing. Name three things that you can see in this room. Can you tell me what you see in this room? Um, I like to ask my clients about you said that. That was really powerful. What did it feel like as you said those things? Scared is fine. Let's talk more about scared. What's getting in the way? Um, do you feel a sense of relief getting that out? I don't ask that first. I don't want to lead them. If they say, I feel relieved, like, what is that? Okay, so relief, that's huge. What would it be like to actually do this in real time? Get the client focused in the moment, not just projecting one way or the other. You can explore meaning. That's at the core of change. So, like, what did it mean to you when they said that to you? How does this push up against your value system? So, like, I also think it's important when a client uses a specific word, figuring out what that word means to them. So, can you tell me what it means when you say fulfilled? So, your dad used to call you a stupid kid all the time. What do you think stupid means? What does that sound like to you? Um, you know, what does it mean to be a parent? What does it mean to be a partner? Where did you learn about what it was to be a husband, wife, whatever, partner? Um, what word best describes how you handle stress right now? And then, what are you going to do about that? So here's an acronym for you: GROW. Goals. So, what does the client want to accomplish? The reality of the situation. Let's talk about the challenges, the things that are getting in the way, and what about the strengths? And you have to ask around all of these. These are questions. So what do you want to accomplish? What's preventing you from accomplishing it? What do you think you bring to the table in order to get through this? Options. So, what's realistic? Like, let's talk about, this is the goal that you want, but maybe your partner doesn't want to trust you, or maybe that's gone. What do we do? What's real that we can accomplish? And then, what do you bring to the table to do this? Another way to think about this is, like, I had a supervisor who used to talk about buy sell lists. So what is it that you want to get? That's the buy. And then what is it that you're willing to give in order to get it? That's the sell. Um, Maybe the other person isn't buying what you're selling, but it helps to know. It helps to get it out there on the table. Oops. When do you feel you can begin this? That's actually a really good question too, and I'm sorry that I forgot that it was there. Um, you know, the question is you want to make change. So okay, that's great. That's very nebulous. When are we starting? What's the first step that you can put towards this? Um, so let's talk about closed questions keep us at the surface level. They're great for information getting, clarifications. They're not going to result in any sort of change making. It is very rare for me to say, so how do you feel about that? And that resulting in some sort of a shift in meaning. But they're still important. It's just if you ask too many of them, they're going to feel like bombarding and it's going to paint you into a corner. It's going to prevent you from getting to something more deep. Avoid questions that are leading. So we don't want to put our meaning and our value system in sort of passively through a question. We don't want to put that to a client. And then try to ask clients things that go deeper. Um, so the client's sharing something with you, ask yourself why it's important, and then try to explore around it. So like, wow, you're saying this thing. If that happened to me, I would really be wondering what it would be like to feel stuck in this moment. Can you talk to me about stuckness, or something like that? That's not just asking, the client can't come back with, well, that would be bad. I mean, I guess they could, but it's going to be easier to say, yeah, but can you dig a little deeper? Which is another question. I like to think about, and this partially dates me. I used to watch the show Columbo. When I was younger, with my parents would watch it like in syndication on one of the TV land networks or something like that. Questions as challenges. Columbo was a detective. If you're not familiar with this, Peter Falk, the actor there, played a detective who seemed like he was bumbling and stupid. Asked a lot of questions. People, criminals got very frustrated with him because he was always asking around. And then if you ever watched the show, or if you get a chance to watch it, like look it up on YouTube, um, what would end up happening is he was actually solving the problem by asking all of those questions and being very sort of acting very naive and foolish about it. At the end he would just walk out and he would go through his own narrative. I asked you about this and you said such and such, but that got me wondering, why would they do that? They always do it this way instead, and then that led me to this, and you told me this, but that wasn't true because this happened. And he would just walk through the entire narrative, like in disarming his uh in disarming the enemy, I was going to say, but in disarming the criminal by acting stupid, and asking a lot of questions, he was actually able to get them to give him the answers that he needed. So I think it's very common for us. We want to be helpers. Many counselors have a difficult time confronting their clients and just saying like, I don't believe you. Tell me more about this thing. You can simply ask questions. And that helps to disarm the client. It also helps if you're in a situation where a client is being aggressive or abrasive. I've asked my clients, like, I'm wondering what you think you're going to accomplish by raising your voice to me here. Like, I don't mean that as a challenge. I mean, like, what are you trying to get out of me? Um, it lowers the intensity. And so it can be a very effective way, of approaching this with our clients. So I'd love you to practice. If we were doing this in class, I would have you practice then. But you're going to be practicing in your small groups. So hopefully that's helpful as an introduction. I look forward to talking with you more about this next time we meet. Take care.